The nation that kills its children gives away its future, and there's no country more entrepreneurial at infanticide than the United States of America. Today, the spotlight is fixed on the fight for life. Why is abortion skyrocketing in America? Who's hiding the truth about the dangerous abortion pill from mothers? And what is the pro-life movement doing, or not doing, to end our nation's most egregious sin? We'll discuss all that and more with my guest, Doug Truax. Doug is the founder and CEO of Restoration of America Foundation, the leading organization working not just to slow the number of abortions each year, but to abolish the very drug behind this mass murder. The foundation is out with a new report that says abortion rates are spiking to a decade-long high, and it pins the blame on under-regulated, risky, mail-order abortion drugs. Well, Doug, thank you for coming back on the show.
Happy to be here, Hayden.
So I want to talk today about the Restoration of America Foundation, the second paper that's recently been produced. This is focusing on the question of why is abortion skyrocketing again in America after, 14 years now. It's hitting a new high after we watched over a generation abortion crash from 1973 when Roe v. Wade was passed, but was put into effect by the Supreme Court, all the way down to 2010 when it hit a low. Now we're back, and we're hitting these highs again. So walk us through exactly what's in the paper.
Yeah, so it was really, the thought was, there's so much going on right now that we are convinced that a lot of people don't know. And there has been some recent polling by Susan B. Anthony list, I think, that 20% of the pro-life base doesn't know this is happening, where the numbers actually going up, because we came out of Roe and we're like, this is great.
Yeah,
thank you, Lord.
2022.
A lot of prayer, a lot of effort. God gave us that win. So I think people kind of got on autopilot a little bit, like, oh, we're in a good spot. Now, of course, abortion is still happening in blue states. Bad. Got to fix that over time for sure. And I know we'll get into that some more. But the idea here is, this is a really terrible thing that's happening, and we want everybody that cares about this stuff to really know so that they can get active and not be thinking that we're on a good path. Because, with the defunding of Planned Parenthood for a year and all that, it's like, okay, that's good to hear. But to your point, so we're now at about 1.1 million abortions a year and going up, which is way more than we were in 2022 when Roe was out and Dobbs was in. So what we have to do is kind of educate everybody. And so I look back on this and I think about what happened with the Biden administration. I mean, they definitely, they're legal experts, to themselves were talking about it. And they always knew it was bad law. Roe was bad law and it wasn't going to last. And so President Trump, God bless him, got us the Supreme Court that we were looking for. And so then it was obvious, okay, this is going to go at some point. And so there was this conversation they were having about loosening the standards around doctor's visit for mifepristone, which is the chemical abortion drug. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I heard about mifepristone for a lot of years leading up to this, in terms of just like, well, there's a lot more going on than just the battle with the Planned Parenthood clinics. Because you have all these crisis pregnancy centers around the country, and they're basically trying to, hey, don't go to Planned Parenthood, come over here, we'll help you.
Sure.
Don't have the abortion. And that was, that battle was always being fought. But just in my dealings on a board in outside Chicago, I kept hearing, wow, there's just a lot of these chemical abortion drugs are out there, and a lot more chemical abortions, which changes the dynamic, because the woman has the abortion basically on the floor in her bathroom in her apartment. So then she's got to
DIY.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's like, so you have to go on and live in this apartment or house where you've had this abortion. It's terrible stuff, right? And so we're always thinking, gosh, what's happening with this number as we go forward? And it turns out that during COVID, it was that time where the Biden folks were like, what we should do? People, going to the hospital is hard, or going to see the doctors. Let's just take the requirement to go see a doctor to get the pill out. Mm-hmm. And so then it just started flooding out across the country in the mail. And so now we're up to, of the 1.1 million abortions a year, almost 700,000 now are the chemical abortion drug.
2/3.
Yeah. And it's like, and these are abortions that are happening in Texas being shipped from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And so this is a real major problem. And then our paper before that was about the a lot of research around the impacts it's having on the women that take the drug, and the health crisis that's involved in that. And we can talk about that. But yeah, the absolute numbers is really going up. And by on this trajectory, by the time President Trump leaves office, it's going to be like 1.4 million a year. So we're not a good thing at all.
Okay, so a lot to unpack here, but fundamentally, what the paper is doing is it's sounding this clarion call to pro-life conservatives, to Christians like us, right? Of the fight isn't over yet. Yeah, we got rid of Roe, and that's great. That's wonderful. It's good step one. But it almost doesn't matter if you don't have a national right to abortion by the Supreme Court, if you can live in a very pro-life state like Texas or Louisiana and still get access to these pills shipped from Maine. Is that even legal, though?
It is at this moment because they've got shield laws in place, so the blue states are saying, no, you can't come after our people that are doing this. So this is going to go to the Supreme Court at some point because you have all these red states essentially that said no more abortion. Blue states are shipping it in. But we are seeing more attorneys general getting involved. There's a letter from 22 attorneys general to the White House saying, hey, we need some help on this. You can't just pretend like this isn't happening because they are infringing upon our laws. We said no more abortion, and they're pushing it in here, to spite them, to say it's the pro-abortion crowd saying, you know what, we're going to do this no matter what, and which is really disgusting. There's these people out there that are just like, let's have more and more abortion, like the old days of safe, legal, and rare. The Democrats is completely gone, and so we have to. The battle is just it's moved. Mm-hmm. The battlefield has changed. Still have the abortion clinics on the ground, mostly in the blue state metro areas, but we have got to get serious about these blue states cannot be shipping these drugs around the country. Well, and we just need to get out of the mail, period. But this battle between the states is heating up, and we got to get to a place where we do have a ruling that says no, you can't do it. You can't take a drug and ship it out of a blue state into a red state just because you want to.
Yeah, that does seem like a constitutional crisis.
Yes.
The states have to extradite criminals to each other. Right. This is part of the Commerce Clause, right, in the Constitution. They have to be able. So we have federal government, right?
That's right.
And what you're pointing out is that you have people who are committing a crime in Texas, but they're living in California.
Yes.
Texas or Louisiana want to extradite them, and California says no because we have a shield law that says we don't have to do that. Has President Trump weighed in on this? I mean, you've said attorneys general or Republican attorneys general are reaching out saying, hey, we need an answer on this. And so far, the Supreme Court hasn't weighed in. Mm-hmm. Has the president weighed in?
No, and he needs to. Sadly, this could have been fixed on Inauguration Day. There were 92, 93 executive orders. There could have been 94. And reinstate the REM standards, the safety standards that dictated that in order to get this drug, you had to go see a doctor, which would prevent it from going out in the mail.
Yeah.
And so that didn't get done. And the White House believes that it's a political liability if you do anything about abortion, meaning like in the general and the midterms. And it's our contention that it hurts the opposite way in the sense that if you don't do enough about it, the pro-life base who says, when they do find out, wait a minute, we had power to change this and we didn't, we feel like we're being taken for granted.
Why did I turn out and vote?
So you get to the midterms when you really need the pro-life base on the conservative side to turn out for you. You're actually going to be working against them. And so he hasn't done anything yet. We certainly hope and pray for this, right?
Yes.
Please, God, help us with this. And I hope he does the right thing. And because the clock's ticking now, here we are in March, and we've got to get something going because it's going to if the summer comes and the pro-life base says, "What? I didn't know this was going on." Yeah. It's going to be a major problem.
I want to stick with President Trump for a minute here because he has called himself the most pro-life president in American history, and he's got a heck of a claim to that title, right? We've already gone over Dobbs, but he also reinstated the Mexico City policy, which bans U.S. taxpayer funding for abortions overseas, right? That goes back to the Reagan administration. He put that back in place at the day one when he came back in. He's also, been responsible for defunding Planned Parenthood with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act you mentioned earlier. And yet in January of this year, he told House Republicans, and this is a quote, "You must have flexibility on the Hyde Amendment," which of course bans tax dollars from going to American abortions. It just seems like there's two different, what he says and what he's doing. There's this increasing gulf there, or am I exaggerating?
No, I think it's a political calculation, because the Mexico City piece, the defunding Planned Parenthood, those are easily recognizable political pro-life things, which the pro-life base we look at.
Yeah.
Great, thanks for doing that. It's kind of like those things have kind of become par for the course if you're a conservative president. You put those in because the other side.
It's an automatic.
It is.
Box.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Again, thankful.
Good,
great. But the thing is, I mean, legacy wise, if he exits and we're up to 1.4 million a year, that's all going to be erased.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an absolute number that we're all tracking and we're watching, and that's a lot of kids. 1.4 million a year,
Yes.
And especially by that time, the mifepristone in the mail, over 1,900,000, something like that, which again could be stopped by him if he wanted to. He just has to do it. And so very thankful for defunding Planned Parenthood. Need to do it permanently. Very thankful for Mexico City. The Hyde Amendment piece, I was surprised at that too. We all were. It's like, hold on a second. That's the one thing that we don't even bring. Because
Sure.
what conservative anywhere, even if you're not like really staunchly pro-life, you're okay with your taxpayers' dollars
You
going
want
into
to fund
abortion? No way.
Right.
It's like, come on, that's just ridiculous. So got a lot of blowback on that one. And so did some of the guys that were talking that way as well. So I think we got that back on track. But I think he was doing that more from a political expediency standpoint, because if they could get that off to the side, they could get that legislation through what they were trying to on the health insurance side.
Mm-hmm.
Bad idea though. Bad idea, and especially so we're talking about the pro-life base figuring out in the summer all these numbers that we're talking about right here. But if that piece had gone through with the Hyde Amendment, then we're really snowballing in the opposite direction of anything that he would want to have happen in a midterm year.
Yeah, you're looking at implosion at that point.
Yes, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you've mentioned a couple times that he has the power to stop mifepristone, which is the abortion pill, from going through the mail. How does he have that power? Explain that.
Well, it's just like the same reasoning that they use under Biden. It's like they grab some crazy studies that the left puts together now, and it's fine, safer than Tylenol.
Buy your studies.
Send it out. Yeah, right. And so it's just ridiculous, and the FDA's been slow rolling, just like, oh, we're going to study it. We're going to do a study, and
Sure.
that's so it really just cut to the chase of just like, no, this was the standard. Clinton, Obama, Trump won, Bush, Trump won. And then going into Biden, you had to go see a doctor to get this drug. And so it's a total no-brainer. Just executive order, go back to what we had before. And then they have to go see a doctor. And, that was the point of that first paper too. A lot of the off-ramp that we were trying to give at the time was just, well, 1 in 10 women are being seriously harmed by this. If there's ever a drug out there, hey, here, take this pill. There's a person inside of you. It's going to kill that person, but you're going to be perfectly fine. I mean, that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
And so this whole Planned Parenthood saying it's safer than Tylenol and everything, it's just dumb. So our point is just call it what it is. In that case, you would just be, if you didn't want to get into taking abortion access away, which whatever, that's a political angle, I suppose. And you just want to say this is a national health crisis. There's way too many women being harmed by this. Then just do that.
Yeah.
And that's like an 80-20 whole piece, even, moderates and a lot of Democrats are like, yeah, let's not harm women with this crazy drug. So going to see the doctor, and the main thing, there's all kinds of things that happen with the drug, terrible consequences. But if you have an ectopic pregnancy and you take that drug, it could kill you. And that has happened. And so the doctor can determine if you have that ectopic pregnancy or not.
Yeah.
And so that's the most important thing.
Which is why you need to go in person into a doctor visit and have an ultrasound.
Totally. Yeah.
But that's no longer required to get the pill.
That's right.
And do women know that?
Right.
Do they realize that?
Right. No, they don't. And so, it's not the FDA hasn't even put the extended warning on the package, just like, and so part of the portion of the first paper was just like warning people, hey, just don't do this. It's a bad idea. And I guess if you are going to do it, you go see the doctor first, and, we've got some evidence coming in from just some contacts that I have in the pro-life community that women are starting to use crisis pregnancy centers where they'll do an ultrasound for you to figure out how far along they are.
Because Planned Parenthood won't.
Because they're going to, that's right. And so they're just like, it's like a doctor's visit, because they're going to go use the ultrasound there. So it's people that have common sense are thinking that through, and I should figure this out. But as a government, you should at least, one, look after the women out there that are thinking about doing this. And then two, from our side, we have power right now. Why are we allowing all these kids to die with this drug, and we should take it out of the mail?
Well, you said something earlier, Doug. Safe, legal, and rare was the motto back in the 1990s.
Back in the day, yeah.
I mean, we could deconstruct this. Safe, what we know from the first ROAF paper, is not safe.
That's right.
Not if you're the 1 in 10 women who's going to experience, death, or at least hemorrhaging or internal bleeding, something horrible. You don't want to experience that, right? I do actually remember, too, for a stat from that, 85% of women who don't have a serious event still get nausea, or it ruins your day.
That's
It's not cost-free here. But legal, it hasn't been legal since the Supreme Court overturned the national right to abortion in Roe v. Wade. It is in effect legal, and we know that the left doesn't want abortion to be rare because they want you to shout your abortion.
That's right.
How did that change in 30 years? You've been watching this for a long time now. That's my whole lifetime.
Yeah.
When I was a child, the way Democrats talked about this issue was literally night and day compared to what it is right now.
Right.
What happened?
A big, huge part of the Democrat base now is the women who want to be able to have an abortion no matter what, at any time. And so they became very supportive of Democrat politics. And so there's a lot of co-opting of the entire party over time, and they just drifted in that direction. And at the same time, any Democrats that were in the party, they're like, hey, we don't need to have abortion everywhere. They got driven out. You couldn't even say that anymore. It's just like you have to be fully on board with all abortions all the time, or you're not a Democrat anymore. And then you had a bunch of, I think, moderate Democrats who were Christians, and said, well, hold on a second. I don't like this concept, and they didn't have a home anymore either. So then it got so polarized inside their base that they kept driving that direction. And so now you have an entire, basically a group of women out there that are saying, no, abortion all the time, no matter what, anytime. And so that's become a huge part of the Democrat base. And so that's the world they're living in now. And they're sticking to it. And this is turning into a straight up moral, that's a life. God made that person at the moment of conception. It's a separate set of DNA. When the sperm meets the egg, that's when conception is, per God. Same person it's going to be in 25 years when they're having their own kids. And so from our side, it's a total moral, this is not what God wants, so we need to stop it. So it's getting more and more heated as we go forward because the sides are so far apart. But I think for our side, it's giving a lot more clarity because everybody's got to ask themselves, what is happening here? What is this all about? This pro-life fight, all these really pro-life people, they seem very upset. What's going on? Well, listen to them for a second. You can't kill another person just because you don't like that they're there or how they came to be or whatever else. That's not up to you. And so it's getting very, very heated, but it's a worthy cause.
I like to point out to people, it's a national embarrassment that Kenya has the right to life begins at conception embedded in its constitution. Actually, a whole bunch of Christian countries in Africa, which are total disasters otherwise.
Right.
But they get that part right.
Yes, that's right.
And we don't, even though we do have the right to life in our constitution.
How about it? Yeah. And that's, if you think about it's the first right, if you don't, it doesn't matter how you feel about immigration policy or taxes or whatever, you don't make it out of the womb, that's the end of the story. And so we have to do our part to get the country back on track. And to your point a minute ago about how far things have moved, in your lifetime, and just me watching it politically over the years, the left has moved the window so far to the left that it's like, well, you can't talk about banning abortion. And it's like, no, we can. We should. That was always the goal, to have no more abortions.
Yes. Not
just, well, let's just figure out like maybe 15 weeks, when really that's kind of a joke because all the abortions, most of all the abortions happen before 15 weeks, so it's like, we shouldn't be playing political games. It's time to just call it what it is and pick your side. pick your side, and that's fine. That's how it's got to be. It's just heated. People don't like the space, but a lot of political people don't like the space because they don't like the, they don't want to well, I said that, now I got to stick to it. It's yeah, well, it is life. So
Sure.
there's that part. And, you don't want to be in the wrong camp on that day.
Yes.
When you're looking Jesus in the face, what's he going to say? Right? You don't want to be in that spot. So just think it through.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned national abortion ban, how we've moved away, the Overton windows shifted. One of the big things that I liked your thoughts on was in 2024, of course, the Republican Party took out the national abortion ban that had been in there for decades. I think it had been taken out and put back in at once. But that is a long-standing, consistent position by the party. And, it seems to me, maybe I'm not very canny on this, but it seems to me that eventually the pro-life movement will notice and want to put it back in.
Right.
In which case now you have headlines in the New York Times saying GOP endorses national abortion ban, where you wouldn't have had that headline before.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on
That's right. Well, the other time was McCain, right? They took it out because he was going to run against 2008, right? They thought that he was going to run against Hillary. Turned out Obama, but they were like, oh, women, we don't want that in there. And so they took it out.
Interesting.
Put it back in. This whole party thing, I one of my favorite quotes is General Eisenhower when he's president. If a political party doesn't have a moral foundation, it's just a conspiracy to seize power. And, we're watching that with the Democrats. And I was saying that a second ago about what's going on here, who's their base and what's happening, and it's they're pandering just to have power. Same reason they opened the borders.
Yeah.
We just want power. You want free money? Will you vote for us? Will you give us power? Here you go. So that can cut both ways. We start taking moral stuff out of our platform, then we're on that path.
Well, do you worry on that point that if on the current trajectory, that America ends up with two pro-choice parties?
It could happen, certainly. I spent 23 years in Illinois watching the Republicans say, well, let's just be a little not so bad as the Democrats. And that doesn't get you anywhere. You have to take a stand. And if you can't take a stand on moral things, then just get out of politics.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like what, because President Eisenhower was absolutely right. You have to have a moral foundation, or else it's a competition for power. And so you could make an argument, they took it out of this last platform just so we could win that election.
Yeah.
And that's the talk. Well, what helps us to win? And so if you're going to live in a fallen world and you're just continuing to pander to the lowest common denominator of morality till it's just out the window, and then it's just a political campaign of how do we win? We won't have a country for too much longer after that.
Well, it also doesn't seem like it's actually good politics. I understand courting the female vote, sure, but a lot of them, they are the base of the Democratic Party. You don't court their opponent's base, right? You court the people in the middle who are winnable. But one of the huge groups right now that we watched come over to the GOP in 2026 was Hispanics, and by extension, Catholics. There's a huge overlap between those two groups. Trump won historic numbers with both those demographics, and both those demographics are hugely pro-life.
That's right.
So it seems to me trying to get, blue-haired females to vote for the Republican candidate doesn't seem like a sensible position when you can get tens of millions of Catholics who are former Democrats whose votes are up for grabs
Absolutely.
right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of religious people in this country that are saying, I don't think I'm a Democrat anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's nothing there. And so to your point, you have to say, here's what we stand for. Those guys over there, they're going to stand for whatever they need to stand for to get anybody's vote at any time, and it'll change going forward. But over here, we have a moral foundation. We know what's right and what's wrong, and we're going to stand on what's right. So I guess, regardless of what you thought of your situation politically over the decades, maybe now you need to change. Maybe now you are a Republican. And, I think President Trump, because of the political stance he did take pro-life from a pro-life standpoint, and because of the nominees he got in the Supreme Court, that helped all of them to say, oh yeah, this is our guy, But that doesn't last if you don't stick to the plan.
Yes.
And I just hope he changes his mind.
You just heard part one of a two-part interview with ROA Foundation President Doug Truax on abolishing the abortion pill. Catch the second half next time, only on Restoration Spotlight. If you like what you hear and want to join the fight to protect American babies, visit restoration-news.com, where we publish hard-hitting news, commentary, and investigative deep dives that always put America first. That's restoration-news.com. I'm Hayden Ludwig, and we'll see you next time.